Welcome to the VIOLA Decor Studio channel. Today we will make delicate and very beautiful festive Christmas medallions. All materials and tools are provided in the description of the video. The key to a good result is the quality of the foundation. Such laser-cut wooden blanks have burnt edges, and this burning then gives dirty, ugly spots because of the paint. Therefore, the workpieces must be treated with sandpaper, especially the ends, and clean it from dust and dirt with a damp cloth. Also, the workpieces should be covered with a layer of water-based acrylic varnish. Varnish will block the spread of fire through the paint. Since my color range will be light, the blanks must be primed with gesso primer or white acrylic paint. Dry well. Usually, I like to work with brushes, but such small workpieces of complex shapes are easier to paint with a sponge. I primed it in 2 layers. Dry each layer separately. There will be decoupage inside the medallions. I have a decoupage card on thin rice paper. As a result, it gives not only a picture, but also an interesting texture of rice paper. Since the edge of my paper will be closed, the card element can be cut out with scissors. Glue the element with the picture with glue for decoupage directly through the rice paper. Rice paper is much easier to work with because it does not crease. Apply glue supposedly from the center to the edges. The glue can also be applied under the rice paper if it is not well absorbed by the glue. Very nice to dry. Now let's move on to painting the main blank in the main color. I took a muted turquoise color in the color scheme of the picture. Mix turquoise, white, black, and brown colors. Take very little black, otherwise it will be very dark and difficult to whiten later. Paint the back of the main elements and the upper part of the rings, as well as the outer and inner ends. I also painted with a sponge for convenience. Also, the sponge gives such a slightly bubbly texture. I will emphasize it later. Let the paint dry well. While the paint is drying, prepare overhead volumetric elements. I took ready-made elements made of flexible material. I did this specifically because I will be gluing them to a transparent medallion, and it is important that it is clean. This is difficult to do if you are gluing raw mass. Therefore, it is desirable to make such elements from flexible mass in advance using silicone molds, or buy ready-made elements, like mine. I cut these elements into smaller pieces for a beautiful composition. Paint flexible elements with white acrylic paint. Be especially careful to paint over the relief of the elements. Allow to dry well. Now let's make patterns on the back of the medallions. I will be using stencils and plain white finish putty. Apply putty through the stencil with a palette knife. Carefully remove the stencil and dry the pattern. If suddenly something went wrong and the putty got under the stencil, carefully clean it with a toothpick. After the putty has completely dried, level the surface of the patterns with sandpaper. Clean from dust with a dry brush. Now it's time to emphasize the texture left by the sponge during painting. Take a very small amount of white acrylic paint on a dry, clean sponge and apply the paint to the surface with light touches. The sponge will leave a little paint on the surface, which will look like light frost. Also make this effect on the edges of the main elements around the stencils. Allow to dry well. Divide the plastic medallion of the required size into 2 halves. Very carefully bite off the loop on the medallion with a pair of pliers. Clean the edge with sandpaper. Now you can proceed to assembly. Wipe the medallions well with a dry napkin from fingerprints. Glue the rings to the main part of the workpiece with universal transparent glue. Nice to match the edges. Even under the medallion, I decided to write a little artificial snow. Carefully apply glue to the edge of half of the medallion and stick it in the center of the workpiece. The diameters of the medallion and the inner part of the ring must match. Be careful with the glue so as not to contaminate the transparent plastic. Allow to dry well under a light load, at least a few hours. Let's return to flexible elements. I decided to emphasize their beauty and volume with a dark gray color. Dilute the acrylic paint a little and apply it to the 3-dimensional elements so that the paint gets into the relief as much as possible. Do not let it dry well. With a damp cloth, carefully remove excess paint from the protruding parts of the elements with light surface movements. Thus, the paint will remain only in the depth of the relief. To dry. Now you can stick these elements on the medallions. Apply universal transparent glue and carefully glue the elements. There should not be a lot of glue, otherwise it will protrude and it will not be beautiful. Although the elements are flexible, they are not thin. Therefore, you need to hold each element with your hands for some time. This is 3 to 5 minutes, so that the glue sticks. Allow to dry completely naturally under a lightweight. Let's make the medallions very wintry. Add the effect of snow and ice to the ends of the medallions. For this, I will use ordinary white putty and transparent gel with crystals. With the help of a palette knife, apply putty on the end with such tapping movements. As a result, the palette knife will leave such peaks and an alleged snow relief. First, I applied white putty and then I added gel in places. It is very good to dry naturally. After drying, the gel becomes transparent and the crystals are visible. and all that remained was to decorate with ribbons and make pendants. I prepared 4 types of ribbons, and in fact, it turned out that 2 transparent ones were enough. They fit in very well in terms of style, and wrap tapes turned out to be redundant, both in terms of texture and colors. Tie bows and glue them using a glue gun. Be careful when working with the glue gun. The melted glue is very hot. Also, make hangers from the tape. Now you can support the channel and become a sponsor. I will be grateful for the support of the channel. Link in the description to the video. Please share this video with your friends so that more people can create with us. How do you like the result? I am delighted. Very delicate and beautiful Christmas decorations came out. Write your impression in the comments. If you liked it, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and we will create it together. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. With love, Anna VIOLA Decor.